that is out there, and also sensors that are already in place, sonar associated with the working of the well itself, hydrophones and so forth. As a condition of moving forward with the well integrity test, BP is to report to us any anomalies and act on those within 4 hours. We continue to work through that process, and I'll go over some of the anomalies we've encountered and how we're dealing with them moving forward. At the same time, there's been an interaction with the seismic research vessels and the acoustic research vessels and our need to build out long-term containment. We had talked before the capping stack went on the need to build capacity out to 60 to 80,000 barrels per day by the end of July. We have necessarily had to make some trade-offs between allowing the seismic vessels in and finish things like the vertical riser associated with that system. We continue to negotiate with BP right now the best trade-off and how we best want to prioritize our long-term containment as it relates to the well integrity test. Long-term containment is the second goal following the relief wells, as I noted earlier. As I said, we have granted 24 more hours for BP to come back and provide us a response. There'll be a science meeting later on this evening in Houston that will take a look at the data and the timelines provided by BP, and we'll be assessing that as we move forward through the next 24 hours as well. Some key things we're working on, and these have been discussed before. I'll start with the big one related to the pressure being lower than we thought. This has to do with a discussion about whether or not we're dealing with depletion of the reservoir versus some other reason why that pressure might be lower. The most notable reason for that would be some kind of a leakage in the wellbore itself. There are different views on how this could come about. There's not a resolution moving forward, but we continue to discuss that. One reason we are continuing to discuss that is we do have the robust response and the monitoring that's going on as we requested from BP. There have been 3 general areas of anomalies that have been detected since the 17th of July. The first one was a seepage about 3 nautical miles from the wellhead itself. We do not believe that is associated with this particular well integrity test or the Macondo well. However, we are continuing to look at baseline data associated with past activity that's in the area, and we'll continue to monitor that moving forward. We also have picked up some anomalies within several hundred meters of the wellhead itself, and we are continuing to take a look at that and what that might portend. And finally, we do have some bubbles that have arisen around the base of the legacy blowout preventer. And then late last night, we established that there was some leakage in the capping stack itself. I've got a picture and a schematic of the capping stack. Let me just tell you right away, because this happened overnight. As you know, we had a connector piece of equipment that we established in to allow us to put the capping stack on. These are the 3 rams that are associated with the capping stack. This is a schematic of those 3 rams. The leakage is occurring in a flange that's located right about here. And there's hydrate formation up here on this side of the capping stack as we move forward. We do not know, but we do not believe this is consequential at this time, nor does it appear that the hydrate formation is inhibiting any operation of the capping stack. It is something we will continue to monitor as we move forward. So we have the things that we're seeing right around the blowout preventer and the capping stack itself. There are a couple of anomalies that have been detected within 100 to 200 meters around the well itself, and then the anomaly was detected on the 17th of July out to 3 kilometers. Again, there's no indication at this time that this is any indication of a significant problem in the well bore, but we are running every one of these anomalies down. One of the reasons we're starting to find these most likely is that during the time that the well was open, it would be impossible to get those sensors in there and detect it with all the amount of hydrocarbons and noise that was being generated. So we had the opportunity to see in a very quiet environment what the bottom of the ocean looks like there. And some of these conditions should be pre-existing, and trying to sort this out is something we're dealing with. But it is a collective opinion of the folks that are talking about this that the small seepages we are finding right now do not present, at least at this point, any indication that there is a threat to the wellbore. If we think that was going to happen, we would be taking immediate action. Now, having said that, if there's any indication of a precipitous drop in pressure or any reason why we might need to do something about it, we would need to have to vent immediately to relieve the pressure on the well and move to longer term containment. And one of the requests that we have made to BP, and they'll be answering in a letter we will get today, is a detailed timeline of what it would take to restart containment operations should we need to do that. And this gets a little more complicated than would appear, because with the capping stack being shut down for the time that it has been, we would have to, first of all, lower pressure and create the conditions to be able to bring the Q4000 and the Helix producer back online. This could take several days because there are concerns about sand buildup in the oil column, and the need to maybe make sure we treat these systems and get them operational before we bring the production back online. That said, we've asked for a detailed timeline on the interaction between the seismic testing, the acoustic testing, long-term containment, so we understand the interaction of the sensors that are out there right now and our need to continue to build out long-term containment as we move forward. And with that, I'd be glad to take your questions.
Mike Ellis with CNN. You mentioned that the pressure is lower than you anticipated, and that there was some depletion, and whether there's a disagreement as to whether it is a depletion at the reservoir or leakage elsewhere, and that there are differing views on this. Are the differing views, is there a federal government camp and a BP camp? Is there a way to describe this, or are there differing views throughout all parties here?
Well, I think there are differing views between everybody in the science community. And let me make sure I state this correctly, because this was the initial pressures when the well was shut in. The pressures have continued to rise in a way that would lead some to believe that the well is holding pressure. The problem is the pressure we started at was much lower than where we thought we were going to be when the well was shut in. So that leads to the discussion of why was the pressure low to begin with. We were thinking that somehow it needed to be up around 7,500 to 8,000 psi, and we started out at around 6,000, and we're up to 6,000 and change. We're up to 6,811 today. So the question is, what caused that initial low pressure? Even though it's following a pattern that's consistent with a well with integrity, what has happened? And could there be leakage, or is there an issue of well depletion? And there are arguments to be made on both sides. Those discussions continue, and we're trying to develop information that will allow us to do that. One of them is whether or not the well has been depleted and there's just less oil down there to create pressure, or is there an aquifer somehow related to this oil field that would still provide a way for the oil to rise and have pressure underneath it. So the question of whether or not this oil field is related to an aquifer is one of the questions they're dealing with right now. And that gets back to the seismology and the geology around the area and the testing, and that continues to be under discussion as we move forward.
Could you also elaborate a little bit on the seepages? You found this one 3 nautical miles from the wellhead.
3 kilometers.
3 kilometers. And one closer in. I presume that all of these are hydrocarbons. Do you know what's seeping out? Is the one closer in believed to be related to this oil field? And how did you detect it? And do you know what type of volumes?
Yeah, the reason what we're actually looking for in this case would be methane gas, which is sometimes a precursor to oil actually rising up through the formation. So if it is methane and you can establish that it's that would be an indication you might need to look further. There is some indication that the seepage 3 kilometers away may not be related to this well, and we're going back through background data and taking a look at that. The other thing we're doing is in closer to the well, we're actually taking samples of the gas itself and testing it for if there are any hydrocarbons in it. There was some trace of methane in some of the gas that was coming out near the base of the blowout preventer. Not a lot, but we're taking extra samples and we're sending those shore to be tested right now.
So here's the news. Another 24 hours.